Established in 1922 with only 14 students, Makerere University gets to celebrate 100 years, I beg your pardon, this year. And under the theme, Leveraging 100 Years of Excellence in Building a Transformed Society. Now, Makerere University is one of the largest, actually the largest and oldest university in Uganda. It also takes pride in educating and contributing to the education of some of the most prominent leaders, heads of state across Africa. And we're about to decipher, to understand Makerere at 100 years. Is it worth celebrating? A very good morning. Thank you so much for tuning in to watch GMU Extra with me, Sharon Kyamugisha. And with me in studio is with me in studio is actually a very prominent law lecturer, Dr. Zahara Nampeo. She's here to help us understand ahead of the celebrations that will be taking place on the 6th of October 2022. And yes, we're celebrating Makerere at 100 years. A very good morning, Dr. Zahara.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having us. Thank you very much for honoring Makerere University.
Thank you for coming through as well. 14 students in 1920-22. And right now we have about 40,000 students.
You're right, 40,000.
The change, the growth, tell me something about that.
It has been a journey. Mm-hmm. It really has been a journey worth celebrating. When we talk about leveraging 100 years of excellence in transforming our society in Uganda, Makerere University is right at the center of it. The journey started in 1922 with 14 students, all male, I must say, and then it wasn't until 1939 that it became a center of higher education, the first of its kind in Uganda and the first of its kind in East Africa. In 1945, we then see the transformation into a university college, then attached to the University College of London. It was not until 1970 that Makerere University became an independent university. So there have been phases of growth ever since 1922. So when we talk about 100 years, there's really a lot for us to celebrate. Not only the fact that this is the first and oldest university in Uganda, but because of those different stages that the university has gone through. There is a lot for us to celebrate. Mm-hmm. From 14 students in 1922 to over 40,000 students to date. We boast of about 35,000 undergraduate students and about 4,000 graduate students. Of course, the aim for us as a university is to increase the number of our graduate students. You may know that right now in Uganda we have about 51 universities, both private and public. So, of course, the numbers of undergraduate students have grown. As the leading university in Uganda, we want to transform into a graduate training institution, so that we are at a different level from the others who are just entering the field. Let me also say that out of the 40,000 students that we have today, we boast of 48% of the public students in public universities. So we are still the biggest public university in Uganda with the highest number of students at 48%.
You're still the biggest university, and looking at also the growth of numbers and also accommodation, looking at, it started out as male oriented and now you have females. In there, there's progress. But then there's also been, critics have actually argued that Makerere University's numbers are now the numbers have grown so much that looking at the university and the number of students attending, it sort of doesn't correlate, that there's a big problem because of overpopulation.
I wouldn't say that actually. Whereas our numbers seem to be big, because of the big numbers of other universities, I've mentioned that we are 51 universities right now in the country, the number of especially graduate students is still very high. I'll give you an example of the law school where I come from, where I teach. The law school right now takes a minimum, actually a maximum of 300 students per year. So that is our uptake admission per year. And we send about 250 to the Law Development Center, where after qualifying for their law degree, they have to go and do the bar course. Yes. But in comparison to the other universities that are now teaching law, Mackay University actually has the smallest numbers of students at the Law Development Center, with about 250 every year. Other universities taking about 400, about 450. So I wouldn't say so much about the numbers. Actually, for us right now at the university, because others are coming into the field, other universities are coming into the field, our numbers are stabilizing, but they're not, they're not very big. I'd also like to mention the fact that there has been progress with regard to gender equality. Mm-hmm. In 1922, we had 14 students, all male. Mm-hmm. But over the years, the enrollment of female students has increased. And the first female students were admitted into the university in 1945, 6 students then. And that is when the motto of the university changed from "Let us be men," yes, to "We build for the future." So you can see that transition. So today we boast of over 52% of all our students are female.
Is that worth celebrating, or it just speaks of how the times have changed and it is only right that you have females joining into whatever professions, universities, and wherever they can be a part of the change in the country?
It is definitely something worth celebrating.
Why?
Because it reflects what the country's demographics are. Whereas we saw higher numbers of male students before, it wasn't necessarily reflecting the demographics, which always represented a slightly higher female representation in the country, more than men. And yet you'd find that at tertiary institutions, at Mackay University, the numbers of female students and graduates was always lower. Of course, we had problems as a country, retention of female students, females always dropping off, across the different levels. So it is worth celebrating. And even that is also reflected in our faculty, in our teaching staff. From about 3% females to about 30% faculty. So right now we have a representation of 30% female faculty at the university. And remember, we have a goal to have at least 30% representation of females as a minimum quota. So as a university, that is definitely something that is worth celebrating. And I'd also like to mention that as we are leading in training, knowledge generation, we have over 155 master's programs in very many specialized fields: the sciences, the humanities, business courses, and we have 130 undergraduate courses. So we have a comprehensive system of education of different courses at the university. So in terms of knowledge generation and research, I can still say there's a lot to celebrate because Makerere is leading. It has been the first, and we believe that we're still in the first position.
Did you go to Makerere University?
I did, naturally.
You did?
Yes, of course.
Naturally, you said?
Yes.
What do you mean naturally?
Naturally, because it is the place that many people aspire to go to. When I hold talks in secondary schools, mentoring young people, young females, young males, the aspiration is to join Mackay University. So, of course, my aim was to join Mackay University, and I was lucky that I was one of the few that was chosen during my time. I'm proud to be an alumnus of Mackay University.
Yes, and looking at the time you attended, what was that situation like, and then the progress that we've made?
Well, I can say that the number of courses have increased. In the law school, when I attended, the kind of courses that we had, even the kind of training that we're exposed to as law students, was very different from what we have right now. The number of courses at undergraduate level has increased. We have new courses that expose students not only to the letter of the law, but also to practical issues of social justice. For example, our students at the law school study subjects on disability and the law, health justice, environmental law, climate change. These are things that are pertinent to society that lead the scholar to go beyond just the letter of the law, the application of the law, to relate what they are studying to the problems in society. So we are seeing not only bigger numbers of students, but also even the kind of courses that students are exposed to are different. We mostly focus on a form of training which we call clinical legal education, which is more practical, where students are in class and we talk about the problems in society and how do you reach out, so that we are churning out students that are more responsive to the problems and issues in the Ugandan society, rather than training the blue-collar workers who can only, sit at desks and do clerical work.
On that very note, there's been an argument that actually many students that are out of the universities do not sort of qualify for the jobs out there. The times have changed. The courses, yes, we have a variety now at universities, but when you look at the quality of those that are churned out of universities, when you look at the issues that are now affecting Ugandans, there needs to be a difference, or there needs to be a change or a tweak when it comes to these courses, something that many believe universities are not doing, including Makerere University. What do you have to say about that?
Well, of course it is a journey. It is a journey, and I think that is why we are celebrating Makerere at 100. We're celebrating Makerere at 100, first of all, to celebrate the milestones. We can't say that it has all been easy. Yes, we've had our ups and downs, we've had our strikes, we've had issues with our students and the numbers sometimes and the infrastructure. But we are also here to celebrate our successes. Because there have been a number. If you go to the campus, at the main campus at Makerere University, if you go to Kabanyoro, if you go to the medical training school, if you go to Jinja campus, there is a lot more in terms of facilities, in terms of the faculty. We are working on the staff-student ratio so that we have smaller numbers of students as compared to the teaching staff. Of course, we also want to reflect on our challenges, because you must understand your past in order to reflect on the future and dialogue about the future. So that is what we are doing at Makerere at 100. We can't say that it has all been rosy, but it has been a journey. But there is a lot to celebrate. Makerere University is a learning institution. We have been leading in the region, in the East African region, and actually the name Makerere University goes before you. Everywhere you go and people are like, oh, you're from Makerere University, the name is well known.
Isn't that because it's the oldest university, and because, yes, it has done a great job, but isn't that one of the reasons as to why? Because Makerere University in 1922, Makerere University even in the late 90s and the 2000s is sort of different.
That's true, that is true, but it's not about the age. It's about the quality and the output. So you can't sustain a name depending on age. It has to be about the product. So everywhere you go in the world, the name Makerere is known because of our alumnus, because of the quality of our research. I'm sure you know that we are the host, we are the origin of the Kira mottos. Innovations, the motto innovations, we are the home of that. Our students were the formulators, the originators of that. Just recently, during the COVID pandemic, we initiated the Bulamu ventilator. This was a breathing aid, for the persons who are affected by COVID. So we are leading, definitely. We are still at the helm of knowledge generation in Uganda, in East Africa, and I believe in Africa as a whole. Yes.
Speaking of innovations, you talked about Kira Motors. Can you please outline some of the innovations that Makerere University has participated in or actually come up with? Yes.
Oh, I don't know where to start from with that. I really
you can
don't
start
know
with
where
Kira
to start.
Motors, because that one also sort of goes before Makerere. Yes.
Yes, Kira Motors is one of those that we are really proud of. Where our students participated in an international competition, and they put together this idea about a motorized vehicle.
Electric.
Yes. I don't know whether you've seen the original one. It's a little green one.
Yes.
But since then, that has evolved to include the bigger cars, the sedans, and then the buses. And that of course, is the intellectual property that intangible intellectualism that came from Makerere University. Not only the ideas from the students, but also the ability for the faculty to guide and mobilize these ideas into something that is concrete.
Would you buy an electric car from Kira Motors as a Uganda?
I think that is where we need to talk about the next 100 years of Makerere University and contributing to the solution, the problems that are affecting the country and the solutions that we need.
But you,
it's difficult to talk about an electro car, electric motor vehicle, when we haven't addressed the issue of a consistent supply of electricity in the country. So you see that in terms of solutions, we need knowledge generation that actually links up, that is interrelated to many other issues in society. So as we're talking about originating ideas about an electric motor vehicle, we need to think about how are you going to ensure a consistent, steady supply of electricity. So we need our engineers to be focusing on that as well.
They've also made hybrids, so where I actually can use electric as well as petrol or diesel. But would you, as Dr. Zahara Nampel, buy a car from Kira Motors?
I think right now with the fuel costs, I would, because the fuel costs are really high. Are really high. But so those are the kind of conversations that we need to engage in going forward in the next 100 years. What is Uganda like? What is Africa like? What are the challenges that we are facing? Look at the issue of the borders in this country. We are a border economy. You're actually safer in a car right now than on the motorcycle, the border, because there are so many of them on the road. So how do we solve this issue? I keep telling our colleagues that the border economy, the purchase of borders and the way that we are using them on our roads is unregulated. You know, there are so many. And are we planning as a country for the consequences of having so many young men leaving the rural areas, selling their land, you know, their ancestral land, to come to the cities to ride a border? So there are issues there about why is it that young men are not encouraged to do agriculture? Okay, we are leaving the land untilled to the older people, while the young men are coming to the cities to ride border in the border economy. But are we also thinking about the future, the next 10 years for these young men? Not only the accidents arising out of the unregulated borders, but also the health issues. Because these young men sit on these borders for over 12 hours a day. Within 10 years or 5 years, they're going to have health issues, back problems. So as Makerere University, are we thinking ahead? Not to talk about how do we regulate the border, but how are we also thinking about the health issues? How are we thinking about food sovereignty and security? Because the land is remaining untilled. So these are the kind of things that we need to think about for the future of Makerere University. There are so many other innovations. We thank the government of Uganda. For the last 3 years, the government has dedicated 30 billion Uganda shillings to research and innovation for Makerere University. And of that, we have done so much research and innovation at Makerere, pioneered so many within the humanities, so much research and innovation in the sciences. That is where the Bulamu ventilator was a result of the Research and Innovation Fund from the government of Uganda. So we do thank the government for that support, and we call upon more support, because as we are driving the development agenda of this country, you know, the NDP3, this needs to be supported by data, it needs to be supported by research, and I think this kind of support by the government of Uganda is critical for Uganda going ahead. And as Makerere University, we are committed to be part of that agenda.
Makerere University has a variety of courses, ranging from, but without those courses, I think I can call them block courses, where it is medicine, law, engineering, something in technology, those that sort of have a variety of jobs as well out there. You sort of might not be able to struggle like someone who's doing social sciences, psychology, and all the others. Why are we still teaching all those, yet when you talk about opportunities and the number of students that get jobs from all the others is very small compared to these other courses that are sort of that have available jobs when you look at society.
Could you give me an example of the kind of courses that have available jobs?
Law, medicine, engineering. You see, engineering, because that is where we're headed. Technology is playing a huge role. Law, because again we can't do away with law. Medicine, because again we're headed there. So an integration of medicine as well as technology is also, you know, we can see that in 100 years or 10 years, those are things that are sort of not going anywhere. But when you look at people who have done development studies, I actually went to Makerere University as well. When you look at people who have done development studies, psychology, library studies or something like that, those are people that sort of do not have or struggle to find jobs. So you have a variety of courses, beautiful, but then with some of these block courses, there's a chance for you, your chance is higher than someone who's doing some of the courses that Makerere is still teaching. Are we also progressing? That would we say we're progressing, or what are we doing about that?
Thank you again for that question. First of all, I'd like to emphasize the fact that society requires a balance. We can't overly focus on medicine and engineering alone without thinking about the humanities. You give the example of the library sciences, the fine arts. All these interlink and complement each other. There has been the recent debate about the sciences,
yes,
you know, taking priority versus the arts. But I think that is a, you know, it's defeatist in the long term. If you want to train scientists, for example, you're training them at the university level, but you're training them in English. So if you are under prioritizing the English, you know, the social studies, these are subjects that they need at a lower level for them to be able to comprehend the sciences, the medicine that they are doing. So we definitely, just to answer your question very quickly, we need a balance of the sciences and the arts. But also, when you say that, you know, there are these courses where the jobs are already market, I don't know what really you're talking about here. First of all, we have very high levels of unemployment in the country, both in the informal sector and the formal sector. Some of our border riders are actually graduates.
Yes.
Yes. They are graduates maybe of these courses that you're saying are not the, you know, but they're teachers. So can you say that we have enough teachers in this country? But why do people prefer to ride a border? And we saw that in the COVID. Many people left their teaching jobs to go and do other things. Why do they prefer to work in the informal economy rather than working in the formal economy? And even to give an example of these other courses you're talking about that have ready jobs, maybe medicine could be, because the ratio of, you know, patients to one doctor is still very high, unacceptably high. But I'll give you an example of our law students, our law graduates. First of all, we have about 300. We're taking about 300 to the Law Development Center. We have about maybe 600 coming in from other universities on a yearly basis. So we have about 1,000 graduates from the Law Development Center every year. How big is the Ugandan economy to actually take up all this? So we find many of our graduates are seated in malls, selling phones, selling cars, selling shoes, because the economy is not big enough to take them all up. So the whole thing about employment is cross-cutting. You know, it doesn't only affect smaller courses, but really it's cross-cutting. And I think that is somewhere that as a university would like to focus on in the next 100 years. How do we fine-tune our society, you know, so that our students are coming out and able to create employment for themselves, practical skills that they can use as soon as they get out of university. That is a conversation that I would like to see happening after the 100-year celebrations.
There's so many, going back to the fact that we have so many innovations stemming from Makerere University, coming from Makerere University, including Kira Motors, even food and nutrition. We've had, you know, many people actually living off what they have made in terms of food, in terms of drinks, and people are making money out of this, all from Makerere University. But then we have also a problem where Ugandans sort of haven't appreciated. I remember when Kira Motors, when that came out, first of all, people didn't even believe that Ugandans could be able to do it. But also when some people were asked, they said, I can't enter a car that is manufactured by a Ugandan. Why do you think people are not able to appreciate, regardless of the intellectual property, regardless of the research, the monies that are injected in these projects, you still have skeptics? Yes.
That's a good question. And I think it goes back to the other issue that you mentioned about the over-focus on the science and innovation. If you're to sell a car that is manufactured in Uganda, it's not only about the science of it, it's not only the engineering of it, the locomotive to move it, but it's about the packaging of it, how it looks. It has to be a fine artist who's going to do the colors, to match, you know, to put in all those other things that are going to make it attractive. It has to be a communicator, a mass comm student who is going to package and do the advertising
Public
for
relations.
this. Yes, public relations for this particular vehicle. So you need a balance of the sciences and the arts. Perhaps that is where we are not focusing on as a country. Maybe we are putting too much focus on the sciences and putting a lot of effort on the research and innovations. How do we now refocus so that we are balancing our society? We need to repackage this information about, you know, this Kira Motors, you know, the Kira vehicle, and say it is safe, it is good, it's good to, you know, to buy Ugandan, but you need this communicator who can package this information. So we really need a balance of it, and that, I believe, is a place where Makerere University, you know, has a position to play. As we're talking about the next 100 years, science is good, but we also need to ensure that all the other courses and the disciplines are playing a part.
You talked about the COVID-19 innovation that Makerere University came up with. Please throw a little bit of more light on that. Oh,
you mean the ventilator?
Yes, the ventilator.
Okay. Yes. So the Bulamu, call it Bulamu. Bulamu is a local word for life.
Yes.
An innovation of the Makerere University Public Health School in collaboration with the RAN, is Resilient Africa Network, is a collaboration, and an African regional collaboration with support from the COVID fund. So the COVID fund was part of the 30 billion research fund that was given to Makerere University by the government of Uganda. I think it was really timely. You can imagine that, you know, the COVID came in and things sort of went at a standstill. And it was really timely that a lot of research went into this, and we came up with this Bulamu ventilator. So what it does was to aid the breathing, because remember that COVID was blocking the lungs, suffocating the lungs. I'm actually told that for those persons who are really affected by the COVID, you'd feel as if you're drowning, like your lungs are filling up. So what the ventilator would do, try to create airspace and facilitate those little bags of air that I think they call them the alveoli, something like that, to facilitate your breathing. So the scientists at the School of Public Health quickly came up with this innovation. Of course, you have one model, and then the issue is how do you then quickly commercialize and create other models, create them more cheaply, you know, so that you can be able to produce many bits and pieces of them. But it is something that we are very proud of as a university because of the timeliness at which it came about, the fact that the scientists were able to come up with it in a very timely manner. Yes. So of course, for us as the university, the future is to say, for these innovations, how are we able then to commercialize them? Because coming up with the an innovation is one thing, but how do you put it now into the market, you know, and make it a marketable product that people are convinced that it is good and that it will actually do what it is supposed to do.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zahra. We'll just hold on to that point. I mean, we're still talking about Makerere at 100 years, and we're looking into its centennial celebrations, which actually will be happening on the 6th of October 2022. Let's take a short commercial break, and we'll be back with more.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
"100 years ago, men and women who were less advantaged than us today started this great institution. They have built it through the years to make it the great institution that it is, to produce the great men and women that have moved our country, our region, the whole continent, and even beyond. They are the ones responsible for making us who we are. We should also make a commitment that if they did what they did, what can we do so that 100 years later, people can also say, yes, 100 years ago, some people made Makerere even a greater institution, and it is what has made us what we are. So this is an opportunity for all of us to make that contribution. It is important for transforming our country, for making sure that our children, great-grandchildren will live a life better than what we have lived. You will be investing in your future. Organize small meetings wherever you are, Makererians wherever you are around the world, and commemorate your days at Makerere University. That is also important because all those activities help in building the spirit of Makerere University. So please, I call upon all of you to join us to celebrate this as we contribute to making the university even greater. Please, you can follow us on our website, www.mac.ac.ug, and there are special pages there dedicated to 100 years celebrations.
Forget last season. Forget the oohs and ahs. Forget every moment that stole the show, because the real show is here on GoTV. It's the new season. It's action-packed, and it's going to be non-stop football. With over 1,000 games from more than 7 leagues and cup competitions, plus a World Cup. Make sure you get the best seat in the house this new football season. Get a GoCoder with 1 month of GoTV value for only 25,000 Uganda shillings and enjoy non-stop football. GoTV Uganda. Love it.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
You're still watching Good Morning Uganda Extra with me, Sharon Kyamugisha, and Dr. Zahra Nampeo from Makerere University, talking about Makerere at 100 years, why it's even worth celebrating. Now, Dr. Zahra, I think there's something, again, an argument that Makerere University is almost synonymous to strikes. Literally, out there, the Makerere University is synonymous to strikes, something that some have disagreed with, others agree with. But what do you have to say about that? I know your face changed when you're like, but how?
No, I wouldn't say that. In answering that question, I'd like to, first of all, emphasize the role that Makerere University and scholars have played in pushing for democratic space and governance in this country. It was through student struggles that so many of the ceilings, so many of the rights and privileges we have today exist. If you remember the student struggles that happened in the 1970s, as students were rising up against the Idi Amin regime. And that is where the name the Freedom Square originates from. Yes, the fact that the university played a key role in governance and pushing for struggle for governance and rights in this country. So I wouldn't want to put it in a negative light that, you know, there are always strikes, strikes for hiking of fees and strikes for I mean, students have reasons why they protest or strike. Lecturers may also have reasons why they strike. And by the way, it is a constitutional right,
yes,
to express oneself. So it shouldn't be painted in the negative, that there are always these strikes. Maybe it is because of the freedoms and expression that are allowed in Makerere University as a public university, that these rights of expression are still permitted. Maybe that is why we don't see them in private institutions where people cannot be allowed to associate and express themselves. But I think that these strikes are also, they're forms of expression when people come up to peacefully voice out a message and say, a hike of fees should be explained. You know, if there's an administrative decision, it needs to be explained, it needs to be justified, people need to be made to understand it.
And that's one of the biggest things that the strikes have always been about. Hiking fees, or it is too expensive for it to be a public university?
I mean, it's higher education is generally expensive the world over. And whereas these students or other individuals may have a constitutional right to strike, but it has to be within limits, of course. So whatever they are striking against, the communication should have been made, and there should also be a balance. So as administrators, of course, there is the need to understand that this message needs to be communicated. But also there has to be that balance. Students can't just resist every time there is a change.
Yes.
I mean, we're seeing today the cost of living is so high. The government of Uganda, I was reading the news the other day, that is paying 1,500 per day for student meals. I saw the university secretary asking the parliamentary committee, do you want us to feed the students on Chikomando? What can 1,500 do today? And we're advocating for 10,000 Uganda shillings to feed per student per day, because that includes breakfast, lunch, and maybe evening tea, and which is okay within the the economy that we are looking at. So of course there might be reasons why students strike, but also it has to be a balance. The reasons for example, a hiking of fees should be explained, should be given time, students should be made to understand. So there is definitely, as you're enjoying the right as a student to strike, you also have a duty. You have an obligation as a citizen of Uganda. So there definitely has to be a limit. But I wouldn't say that strikes are synonymous with the university. And I would like to thank the current administration. I think there has been, over the last few years, less number of strikes because of the increased communication and information flow between the administration and the students with regard to decisions that are being made. It's a learning curve. It can't all be perfect, but I think that we are making headway. So it can't always be that every time you have a decision that you don't like, you come up in arms. You're going to go out into the field, into the workforce, and your boss makes a decision. So what you do as a student, it has to be a balance either way.
Now, Makerere being one of the oldest university in Uganda and the first, there's been buildings that come up in Makerere University, but then there's also so many dilapidated infrastructure. There's in Makerere University. I remember even when I went to Makerere University and graduated in 2018, we still struggled with some of those facilities. What is being done about that?
Thank you for that question. Some of the oldest, most beautiful universities in the world are very old. They are very old. But age doesn't mean necessarily that they are not utilized, that they are dilapidated. I think we need to, you know, as a country, dedicate some more resources to maintaining, especially for purposes of history and studying architectural designs, some of our old buildings. Dilapidated may mean that over the years, maybe we've had less resources to infrastructure maintenance. But if you go through Makerere University today, it's an amazingly beautiful campus.
Only because we're celebrating soon.
No?
You know, like how you have a function at home, and towards the function, everything is being put together.
No. For example, the School of Law has had a very old building. We're in a very old building.
With less numbers.
Has actually declared, you know, that it shouldn't be habited by humans. But right now, the government of Uganda has dedicated funds, and we were hoping that by the celebrations this year in October, that would be in our new home as the School of Law. So there has been a lot of improvement, mostly through the government of Uganda, but you know, the Makerere University also enjoys a lot of partnerships and collaborations with external partners. So the Makerere University that you're talking about, I think is one of days gone by where we have a new face, and we are proud of it. But of course, there is still more room for improvement at the top.
I really pray so many of those are taken care of and renovated. Where are the celebrations going to be held?
So we've had a number of celebrations right from last year in 2020 through to next year. Sorry, last year from 2021 through to next year in 2023. Makerere University is big and old, and we have so many strategic partners and so many alumni across the world, and so many things that we'd like to celebrate. So the celebration can't be a one-off. So right from last year in October, we launched the celebrations for the 100-year centennial recognition. And throughout, from 2021 through to this year, we've had a number of activities, both at college level. Makerere University has 10 colleges. So each of the colleges have celebrated, has recognized their achievements in different ways, involving their students and also their faculty, as well as our stakeholders. So reaching out to our stakeholders through music, dance, and drama, through, for example, the School of Law, we have done community legal sessions with members in the community that needed legal assistance. So colleges have used their students and have used their faculty to reach out to our different stakeholders. We've also, as a university, reached out to our sister institutions and alumni across the world. So we have gone and visited the University of Nairobi. We have visited Rwanda. We have visited, I think, I don't know whether Dar es Salaam has happened yet. So we have tried to reach out to our different strategic partners. Also, because we are an academic institution, there's been a focus on conferences and academic engagements. So we've had a number of public lectures. Starting from February this year, we had a public lecture focusing on the role of governing councils in higher education management. That was given, the keynote was given by the Honorable Attorney General, alumnus of Makerere University, the Honorable Kyamugisha. Since then, we've had a public lecture honoring the late Tumsime Mutebile, focusing on recovery, post-COVID recovery of the economy, where we had the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Finance coming in to give the keynote. We've also had the Nsibira public lecture. Nsibira dedicated a big chunk of land to Makerere University, and we were honoring not only him as a former Katikiro of Buganda and his contribution to Makerere University, but also discussing the role of cultural institutions in higher education. And this keynote was given by the Honorable Katikiro of Buganda, Charles Peter Maiga. Just last week, we had another public lecture on honoring the late Professor William Senteza Kajubi. Senteza Kajubi was at the helm of higher education in Uganda, and he was also the first Fulbrighter. Fulbright is a scholarship scheme that is managed by the American government through the embassies, the local embassies. And he was the first Fulbrighter, the first person to be awarded this Fulbright scholarship to attend a university in the United States in 1952. Oh, I must also say I'm also a Fulbrighter, by the way, a Fulbright 2011. So we celebrated Professor Senteza Kajubi last Thursday. We also had a celebration of the Fulbrighters, not only the ones in Mackay University, but also others that have benefited from this scholarship scheme from across other universities. So we came together at the Freedom Square in Mackay University and, you know, really generally liaised with the Fulbright Management Scheme, the ambassador of the United States in Uganda, Her Excellency Natalie Brown, and other academic staff in Mackay University. So you can see that we have tried as much as possible throughout the year to reach out to different partnerships, to do different things, different celebrations, both academic and non-academic across the year.
Sorry, time is not on our side, but maybe where do we see Mackay in the next 100 days? Just in 1 minute as we come to a conclusion.
Okay.
Yes.
So Mackay University's strategic plan,
Yes.
2020 to 2030, is focusing on knowledge generation to transform society. So our aim is to generate knowledge and information that focus and respond to the societal problems in Uganda. For example, issues such as food security, issues of climate change, evolving health issues. So as a university, we want to focus on research. We want to be a research-led institution and actually increase our uptake of graduate students. As I mentioned in the beginning, we have 35,000 undergrads and 3,000 graduate students. We want to increase the graduate numbers of students to 30% as a university, so that we are focusing more on research for solutions, homegrown solutions to problems that are currently facing Uganda. Yes. We also hope to use the next remaining weeks. We have a celebrations on the 6th of October, where we expect strategic partners, over 1,000 guests at the university, to as a climax of the celebrations of Mackay at 100. We expect dignitaries from across the world, our strategic partners, ministries, to really come and celebrate with us Mackay. It will be the climax, and it will be very colorful, dances and all those cultural things. That is when you're really going to feel what Mackay is about.
Any parting shots? Then we close.
We build for the future. We build for the future. Mackay is still as committed, and we thank the government of Uganda for the support that we have received over the years. We also thank our alumni, we thank our partners, and we commit to be a strong partner in the development agenda of Uganda and Africa as a whole.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zahara Nampel. That's Dr. Zahara Nampel. I'm from a senior lecturer at Mackay University. And yes, here to talk about why it's even important to celebrate Mackay University at 100 years. Started out in 1922 with only 14 male students, and now when it comes to gender equality, we have a variety. Women are also going to school. I actually also studied with mothers, so that was, yeah, yes, there's nothing that can stand in the way of education, and Mackay University has showed that that is a possibility. Thank you so much for watching. Let's take a short break and we'll be back.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Nigifule